Welcome to Alignment First, where we're here to bring leaders back to their peace, presence, and power. And I have the honor and the pleasure to sit down with Kris Kluver, speaker, strategic advisor, and facilitator, founder of Life on Your Terms, and leading the way with peer circles. But beyond all of that, my mentor and dear friend, brother, I really appreciate you taking the time today, man.
Nice. Thank you so much, man. It's humbling to be here, and it's nice to see where you're driving, man. It's fucking awesome.
I told you when we first met, shout out to Chris Widener for putting us together years ago. A very chance meeting, and in learning about Life on Your Terms and what has become peer circles, what I saw in you is where I could see myself in 10 years. And what's supremely interesting, like we were talking about before we got on the air, what sets you apart in the mentors and guides that I've had in my life is your discriminating, qualifying criteria for who you serve and choose to work with, in that regardless of their status, their economic qualifications, what their mission and vision, if they are not willing to do something truly audacious, they're off the table. And first of all, I think that's supremely ballsy. And I'm curious, is that something that from an identity standpoint as a coach that you felt like you earned your way into, or is that a metric that floated to the top over your years of experience? It was like, yep, that's the one. If that doesn't happen, the rest is irrelevant.
To be blunt, to be very candid, I think a lot of it had to do with my own imposter syndrome.
Oh, okay.
And so I've had the good fortune, just high level. I started my first of 16 companies when I was 19. I built them, bought them, sold them, wrecked them. I understand what that looks like. And I've worked with hundreds of teams. And I've had the good fortune with a handful of teams to go from entrepreneurial all the way to billion-dollar market caps. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of silly, but the lens that we see our lives and how we see things is how we see things. It doesn't mean that other people don't see things they see the same thing, but maybe in a very different way. Mm-hmm. So the analogy, and bear with me on this, is if I was showing you this and I said, and this was a rose, I'm like, dude, can you see this rose? Well, if you're colorblind, yes, you can see this rose. And I can go, man, look at the textures and that color and how rich it is. And from your perspective, if you've never seen a deep red, beautifully made rose, you would still see it, but you wouldn't see it the way I do. And so many of us, sorry, that screwed up the focus.
Yeah, you're good.
But the intention is, so often we don't know our own power. Mm-hmm. We don't know who we are and what we're capable of. And I realize that, so I'm reasonably dyslexic and I look at things in a very different way and I connect dots in a very different way. But I didn't know that. So it took me a long time to realize that I have a unique gift in really challenging and helping people to look at things differently and actually not be afraid of that gift and be willing to go in there and own that, because that's just the way I see things. And if that's the way I've always seen it, but nobody else sees it that way, how do we know that? So yeah, and to your point, I have 3 criteria that I look at when I'm looking for if I'm going to choose to engage with someone. And I have found the more that I lean into that, the more true I am, the more genuine I am with that. You know what? It pisses off some people, and I'm okay with that, because I'm just not their huckleberry. It means there's somebody else. But for the right people, overarching more and more and more, the more true we are with that, the more it attracts the right people. And it becomes very, very positive. It's a magnet. You've heard me say this. Mm-hmm. I like to say, people are always like, dude, how you doing? I was like, well, people say the obligatory, oh yeah, I'm great. I'm fine. I'm busy. Well, I like to say I'm the luckiest cat on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe I am. Because I think every day the world conspires to give us everything we fucking want. But the challenge is for us to think about what that is. And the reality is I think we all are the luckiest people on the planet. We just have to get out of our own way and really figure out how is it we can dream in a very, very audacious way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll tell you, that's sort of the high level perspective, but I'll give you the mechanics if you want on the specifics of why I like to say that and how it can become an uncomfortable forcing device in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
first,
let's dive in.
That other piece. Does that make sense or any thoughts?
No, it makes complete sense. And I remember, as I was transitioning, I feel like every conversation that you and I ever have, first of all, you are so service forward. And when we engage, there's always whether it's implied or explicit, an energy in you that is, how is this conversation going to serve you and help you move it forward? And as I was moving away from the gym and moving into next level as it is now, as we're serving leaders and bringing them back to their peace, presence, and power, you just simply asked me, is this next version, this next season of your life truly audacious? Because if it's not, what's the point? And that has sat with me and carried me through this season in developing this process, this evolution of coaching, this next level of service to our clients. And I'm so grateful for it, man, because you didn't have to do that. We were in a peer group through Chris Widener years and years and years ago. And like right before the pandemic hit, that's when we connected. We've known each other that long. And there was this instant connection between you and I. And it has obviously transcended and taken us far beyond the whatever the agreement was to be in that group in the first place. So yeah, I think it comes to you. It comes to you naturally, but at the same time, I think that there are things that I've done, and I don't know exactly what they are from your perspective, that have made this relationship, and as much as you've contributed to it, worthwhile.
Well, so I appreciate you saying that I chose to do that, but from my perspective, I got to do that. And I can be kind of an asshole in that I'm very, very protective of my time. Our most valuable asset: time, treasure, talent. Only 3 things on the planet we can leverage. Treasure, money, stuff, all that shit. That's what everybody gets wrapped around the axle with. But it's the most illusionary. It's the most, you can beg, borrow, steal it, piss it away, Our talent, as long as we're sharpening the saw, as long as we don't lose our our marbles. Hell, I went to school 2 weeks ago. I went to Wharton and did a course for family offices, which was fun. But it's our time that's our most valuable asset. So how we choose to invest that time. I like when I'm coaching with my senior leaders, I ban the word spend or waste or it's how are we choosing to invest that time when we do things, and I think that helps. But when it comes to the audacity piece, I think so if I'm interviewing somebody as a potential client, or if I'm interviewing them to potentially join the peer groups, the peer circles, I look for 3 things. 1, does that person have a self-awareness? And what I mean by that is the skills for us to grow from here to here are so different than it takes to get from here to here. And if that person doesn't have that awareness that they're becoming the choke point in growth, that they're the ones who are 100% accountable for their own peace, their own prosperity. It's if they don't realize that it's the person they saw brushing their teeth in the mirror this morning is the one who's accountable for those things, are they going to own it? Because if they're going to blame everybody else, I can be as brilliant as I want, and it's going to go in one ear and out the other, and it's a waste of everybody's time. Mm-hmm. So the second piece is around the idea of, are they willing to be disruptive? Are they willing to genuinely get uncomfortable? Because I believe we're going to go through more discomfort and more disruption in the next 5 and 10 years than we've ever gone through. But with great disruption comes great opportunities. But if people aren't willing to embrace that, mm-hmm. well, again, they're going to get run over. But to your point, the audacity piece, and this a lot of times to some people, it sounds really counterintuitive. But I don't want somebody who wants to grow 20% next year. There's 1,000 people out there who say you're going to help you with that. But the reality is most people are just going to slip back into their default mode, put their head down, and work 20% harder. And you can do that for a year, maybe 2, but then you burn out. And that's why organizations tend to porpoise. They go up and down and up and down because they are continuing to deal with the same problems. But when I can get somebody that says, no, we're at 10 million and I want to go to $1 billion market valuation, which I've done. Well, that's fucking ridiculous. Right on. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Let's figure that one out. Where do we want to go and by what time? But what it does is it becomes a forcing device to say no to all that noise, all that minutia, all those other things. Plus, it also forces us to start addressing those things that realistically we all know we should be doing, but we're conflict avoidant and actually dealing with it. All love and respect. You and I talked about your gym years ago. Yeah. You knew the right thing to do years ago, but there was something there, whether it's a pride factor or letting other people down. Perceptions. Yep. And we all go through that. Everybody does. Anybody who says they don't, they're either a sociopath or they're full of shit. So it's, but it's helping people look at that way. So I ramble a little bit there, but what do you think?
No, you're great. You're great. No, I talk about this a lot when I'm engaging with anyone willing to listen who's on their own journey and moving towards transition and exploring the inklings of a grander vision. And I remember you asked me very early on, actually, is the gym the thing or is it the springboard for the thing? And if nobody had ever asked me that before, and I never thought that deeply about it up to that point. And, hindsight being what it is, if I had taken the time to sit with it and if I had invested, thank you.
Investing your chops. I mean,
again, no, this is
investing time in that.
Yeah. Invested the time to sit with it. Then the terminology I love to use now with our clients is they're not investing in time elapsed. They're investing in time collapsed. And, hindsight being what it is, we could have been here 5 years ago, Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I recently read a book, Ben Hardy book, Science of Scaling. It's a pretty good book. I enjoyed it.
Is that his latest?
Yeah, some interesting spins in there. But I like his philosophy on, I've always looked at time as a resource. Mm-hmm. He challenges the thinking to, what if you use time as a tool? Which was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, say more.
So if you had clearly defined what amazing looked like 5 years ago, and said, I want to be where I am today. Okay. And you say, well, all right, fair enough. What would it take to do it in 3 years? Ooh, people get uncomfortable. They start moving in their seat. They touch their face. They look away. They get all nervous. All right. Well, that's unreasonable. They start, okay, what if you wanted to do it in a year? But I believe extraordinary lives in the unreasonable. Be unreasonable. And when we do that, it's actually amplifying. So when we have something that I like to teach called a life-changing goal, LCG, in life on your terms, it's kind of like a personal BHAG. If you're clear on what that is, you set a date on it. Then if you actually start to compress that time frame down, and you get really uncomfortable, but it kind of squeezes all the bullshit out of the way and says, we got to get through this like yesterday. Mm-hmm. We don't have time for this conflict avoidance. We don't have time for these other pieces. So as an example, I was talking to my wife, Rika, you know Rika, mm-hmm. about this. And Rika used to run 50 milers. She's taken the last couple of years off, and she's thinking about getting back into it. As an older gal, it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, so if you want to run a 50 next year, you could say, okay, yeah, cool. I can figure out how to train back into that. Great. What if you wanted to run a 50 in 3 months? Oh my God. I have to start right now, today. But it doesn't, it's a way of compressing that, which in turn, in my opinion, starts to hit into those levels of flow and those flow states. And I think we actually start bending time and get done with more and more and more in those periods. I recently did a bike tour in Morocco, and just in that time, we were so busy. At the end of the 8 days, it was like, wow, this feels like this has been 3 months. We've gotten so much experience in, but we had compressed it down. So anyway, a little side dance on the idea of time as a tool. But where's your head go with that? What do you think?
Well, the question I have with all that compressed time, do we acknowledge that effort, that momentum, that energy displaced in a singular focused direction? How do you go about including the other things that are important, family, etc., without that effort being at the expense of those things that are important?
Okay. I think that we all have more than enough time to do everything we want. I just think that there's a lot of people who are very, very, very good at creating resources and things that we believe we need that we allow to hijack our time all over the place. You think about it. I think it's Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Mark Cuban, Zuckerberg, all of those guys. They're about as busy as you get. They're about as big and successful as you can get. And every one of those guys invests at least 4 hours a day reading. You would be like, how on earth do you have time? Well, they've made that a priority. Mm-hmm. So that's where, and you wanted to talk through sort of the balance wheel or sort of life on your terms. But I believe that the more we can look at life in a holistic way, I think I do my speaking on this. I think work-life balance is bunk. Mm-hmm. I don't think it can exist anymore. But a healthy work-life intentional integration is 100% possible. But you have to put that intentionality around it. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to be 100% present and focused whenever you're engaging with it. Mm-hmm. So as an example, I had a client, pretty big cheese, public company. And he'd go home and he wants to be a good dad. He's got young kids. So he'd come home, he's playing on the floor, but he was scrolling, going through his feeds, checking stuff out, staying on top of things. And finally, his young daughter said, Daddy, why don't you go away? He's like, why? He's like, you like your phone better than me. And that crushed him. Mm-hmm. But it helped him understand that if he can come home and be ultra present in unicorn fun time, even if it's for 10 minutes, you can be so much more engaging than if you're kind of there for 3 hours and you're scrolling and you're checking your scores and you're checking Facebook and all that other shit. But I interrupted you. What do you think, Michael?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with the 2 parts. You have more than enough time to do all the things that you want, but it comes down to presence and priority is what's really coming to me right here, right now. Is if you truly, like, for like us in this podcast right here, right now, it is literally just you and me. I have no phones. I have no other screens up. Like, this is where I am, you know. If the school calls, they got to talk to Nicole, you know, and I think that is a practice, especially with all the inputs that we're getting in today's society. It is 100% a strategic practice and a willingness to go without those inputs for the sake of being present. That's the real gold. And as coaches, let me know if this rings true for you. As we become more and more disconnected via social media, the evolution of AI, et cetera, it's going to make what we do interpersonally so much more valuable, because the skills that it takes to do what we do well become more and more rare as I'm experiencing the world. Where do you go with that?
Well, definitively right now, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that AI is going to get to a point fairly soon that if you're a marginal coach, it's better to go with AI because it's going to have a deeper database. It's going to be more intuitive. It's going to be more present. I personally have been doing, I have my own AI avatar that we feed my books and blogs and everything into it on a regular basis. So my clients can use it. They got a 3 a.m. Literally, it's freaky because I speak 12 languages now and it looks like it matches up, but you can just have a conversation on the computer and it's lumpy, but it's getting there. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's the human connection.
Mm-hmm.
This is why Peer Circles is leaning in, but it's the same philosophy with coaching. Is I believe we have never been more connected in history, but we've never been more isolated. Dude, I was in remote, like literally like camel ride into the Sahara. And there's guys on their cell phones in full Bedouin dress checking Facebook. It was bizarre. So I do think that we all have certain addiction. I have addiction issues. I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke anymore. I was really good at all of them. But I see that I can become a news junkie. I can be checking the market. You know, we've got all this disruption stuff. It's easy to have those things. Mm-hmm. And I did a tech break probably a month and a half ago. We were up in Alaska for a week and I turned my phone off in Seattle. We flew to Alaska, went remote, did salmon fishing for 7 days, and then I turned it back on. We got back. And you know what? The world didn't end. Mm-hmm. You know, I had some back doors and if a client had an issue. So I really started wondering, and I looked back to where I used to carry a pager, you know, not that many years ago. And my chief of staff and my wife have the pager number. Well, unfortunately, the pager networks are dying. So what I did is I pulled this out of my pocket, but I just converted my Apple. I have an Apple Watch, but it's like a pager now, and it's small enough I can't scroll. But if I need to, so if I'm out for a long mountain bike ride or whatever it may be, I can bring this, and if somebody needs to get a hold of me, they can. And if I need to send a text, I can. And I can read text. But I think we need to set up our own guardrails on how we do that. Mm-hmm. So what do you think of that?
I love that. I love everything about that. You know, having it's still digital, but you'll get it. An analog reversion that is less compatible with the pace of life that you're living digitally. I think that's a great way to, you know, put those guardrails, those boundaries in place without feeling like you're giving up Linus's security blanket. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a security blanket. I remember the first time So I've done, close to 1,000 full day sessions. And the first time I did a session, I said, well, these people are paying me a lot of money, so I'm going to turn my phone off for the whole day. And I remember at the end of the day and said goodbyes and everybody's happy and all that. And I remember getting ready to turn my phone on. It's like, because I'm a big deal as far as I'm concerned. No one who's ever been a big deal ever in their life. But I turn my phone on and wait for it to blow up. And sure enough, my chief of staff, I'm like, oh, no, they didn't. I can respond to this one. It was like, it was nothing. I'm not nearly as important as I think I am. And you show that same courtesy to others. Now, this even works from like a coaching perspective, from a leadership standpoint. I have people, if you have somebody who's a senior leader and they're working, it's like, God, my people just aren't listening. All right, let's first look in the mirror and see if we can identify what the root cause is.
Yep.
Why is that happening? And, but they're sitting there and they're typing and they're working and my people just don't listen to me. It's like, and you're talking to them and they're not really listening. So it's like, all right, and then you say something just completely obnoxious and they're like, what'd you say? But if you can get people to say, look, just a sec, finish what you're doing, close your laptop, stand up, look them in the eye and say, how can I be here for you? Oh my God, that person now has engaged and is listening. 100%. And this applies like this. This applies if I come home, the greatest gift I can give my wife is we live buried in the woods in Colorado, but when I finish, I go from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor. If I can sit down and go knee to knee with Rika and say, tell me about your day. Be very present with her. Oh my God, that's the same thing as if I bought her a Ferrari. It's that engagement piece.
Why do you think that's lost on people? Because for us who are stewards of this practice, and I use the word practice very deliberately because I don't know about you. I'm so far from perfect in this regard. But the intention remains. When you put that in front of somebody, like when I'm going to engage with a client, I like to ask them, what's more important than the next 60 minutes between you and I? I want to know what that is. So if you pick up your phone for whatever reason, I can assume that it's that important thing. Otherwise, it should just be you and I right here, right now. You know what I mean?
I love that framing, man. I think that's awesome. I usually ask, so do we have anything here on fire? Do you have something like potential kid issue or, somebody, but if not, because the reality is there's standardized tests that if people can even see their device, the kids tested lower, even if the device was off. It's enough of a distraction. Right. I remember the most successful blog I ever wrote was it suggested that Rika and I were having marital issues and that I would go to the restaurant and my eyes would wander. And then I would sneak off to the bathroom and she'd hear me giggling. And then she started to ask things like, oh, is she coming with us to dinner? Oh, I see you brought her. And she was referring to my phone as her. And she and it was just like, well, shit. Okay. Yeah. Fighting, we're competing for. So, and you with your kids and everybody else. So as silly as it is, a lot of times now we go to the restaurant and she stays in the car.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell you what, when you're at a restaurant, especially during COVID, and they say, yeah, just can we have a menu? And they're like, just scan it. It's like, we don't have a phone. Yep. How is that possible?
I want you to count the change back to me because I'm paying cash. Like, let's go.
Just a second. Let me open this up and look.
It's not weird. I'm old. Let's go.
Yeah. I'll own that all day long.
It's incredible. I tell this story. Couple of weeks ago, we got crazy rain down here in Arizona, and it's 1:00 in the afternoon. It's like Tuesday. I'm sitting on the porch with Nicole, and we're watching the kids just go absolutely nuts in the rain. And I had this out-of-body experience. I observed myself observing this, right? I was like, man, if I still had the brick and mortar, I wouldn't be here for this right now. And a lesson that you taught me through Life on Your Terms just smacked me in the face, in that everything that I build in the hereafter insulates these moments. And this is now what I coach, because as a leader, the driver of this vision, you're afforded this beautiful opportunity. I think we all are as human beings, but categorically as a leader, you for sure are making conscious decisions that, if you're not careful, eliminate those moments. So the structure of your business, your org chart, should be such to insulate that which is most important to you, whatever that is. And for me, it's that moment. Right. And the decision matrix through that lens is so much different than what I'll call a paint by numbers MBA perspective as to how I'm supposed to develop this org chart and delegate downstream. What shows up for you as I recant that story?
Well, I love hearing that. And I really, really hope that you and Nicole went out and ran around and got nuts with them and jumped in puddles as well, just right along with them. But where my head immediately goes, though, is so often, so few of us really have invested the time to define what amazing looks like on that holistic level. Mm-hmm. And as a result, we abdicate that. We give that narrative away to the social media platforms and the highlight reels, or the insecurities of what we see on TV and all this other stuff. And the reality is, I've worked with some billionaires, and they have more money than God, but their spouse hates them. Their kids don't like them. They don't even like themselves. So they end up making bad decisions and doing bad things sometimes. So I think when we can choose to define what amazing looks like for us, and that's where, like you went through and used the balance wheel, but it's figuring that out. You define that family on how family and Nicole is really, really important. Mm-hmm. And that's wonderful. And here's the thing, though. If you want to be the guy who wants to go out and make $1 billion, and that's the main thing, good for you. I just picked up a new client. She has a venture capital fund. She's younger, great background. I mean, she's earned her way up. She came from, she was an immigrant refugee, worked her way up. She's just kicking ass. Early 30s, but now she wants to end up running $1 billion fund, but she also wants a spouse, and she'd like to have kids. And she said, well, but I can't, I got to choose one or the other. I'm like, who the fuck told you that? No. You get to have everything you want, but you first have to figure out what it is. And then that's audacious. That's incredible. That is a huge, audacious dream. Fair enough. Now it's going to force us to back into it and re-engineer how we're going to achieve it. And that's why I live 100 miles west of Denver at 10,000 feet. I'm a 7-figure coach that I take 2 months off a year for adventure travel. I take 2 3 to 4 hour blocks each week to go just screw around in the woods and think. I only work with people that I really enjoy working with and that I like. That's why I say I'm the luckiest cat, but we all are. But we have to define what amazing looks like. What is unreasonable? And then we can go through and start to re-engineer how we do that. But what do you think of that, Michael? I mean, you and I have had that conversation before.
Yeah, dude. I think about you so much. It's crazy. I want to double back to the identity piece, because once you identify what amazing looks like for you, I feel like there's an evolution that is required to become the person that has that amazing. It's not when we have these conversations esoterically, it's almost as if there's this air about the conversation that I'm just going to make this decision and bam, life's going to be different. How do you move through time between where you are and what amazing is defined without losing steam, getting frustrated? Because when you make that decision, as I've lived it and as I've coached it, I feel like it's inherent. It's almost automatic that you're going to encounter resistance that is like, do you really want that? In a lot of different forms. That inevitably, and I think the killer of all of it is second guessing that desire for amazing. So what are the mechanisms, or is that phenomenon true universally, or is there a way to bypass it?
So you're an athletic phenom in how much you do, and with the lifting and the things that you achieve with that. Mm-hmm. Do you go through visualization exercises of where you want to be in 5 years or even in 6 months? Or
most recently, I just had my knee replaced. I just hit 2 years last week, and every day for the last 2 years has been, I want to be where I am currently.
Mm-hmm. So I had my hip and knee replaced 10 years ago. And I decided after I had my hip and knee replaced that I would do an ultra marathon because I'm an idiot. I was trying to keep up with my wife, and I started figuring out mechanically that I couldn't run it, but if I could walk it fast enough, it was all about endurance, and I could figure those mechanics out. Mm-hmm. So I visualized what it was going to feel like crossing that finish line, feeling, the salt and the exhaustion, but the full dopamine hit that I was getting, and the hug from my wife, and soaked in sweat, but exhausted, but just, I could feel the sun on my face. Mm-hmm. But it didn't mean that I just sat down on the couch and ate Ho-Hos and hoped for the best.
Right.
But it did become a forcing device for me to say, okay, what are the mechanics I'm going to have to do for this? Well, first I need to lose some weight. So how do we do that? Second, I'm going to have to find a world-class coach. Did that. Third, I'm going to have to be ruthlessly but compassionately consistent on what I say I'm going to do, to give others around me patience. So was there imposter syndrome? Of course. It was ridiculous. I'd never done a race. I'd never done anything over 10K. But when you do this, I believe that you start to recruit different parts of your subconscious to help empower those things to happen. The Henry Ford quote of whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. So I firmly believe that. Now, does that mean we don't have, of course we're going to have obstacles and things that come up. But part of that is going to be, who do we surround ourselves with? As somebody who turned pro in the 80s and retired in the early 2000s with drinking, I don't have a problem with drinking, but if I'm out at a bar with somebody who's worried about their own drinking, they have a problem with me not drinking. If I am hanging out with somebody else who's not very fit and they're feeling bad about their fitness, they're going to tear me down every way sideways around what I can or can't do. Mm-hmm. So part of that is acknowledging that and defining who are we circulating ourselves with? Mm-hmm. What are the resources we have? And then even acknowledging that those things are going to happen, but what are the mechanisms? What is the support work that's going to help us achieve those things? So like in peer circles, we actually set a goal at the very first, what do you want to achieve in 90 days? And then we're going to hold people accountable to that as we go through, as we meet with them. Are they on track? But this way I like to say ruthless but compassionate accountability. We get that permission and we can do it. Now, part of it is always going to be mindset. Part of it is going to be how we've been raised. You and I have won the genetic lottery. As Warren Buffett would say, we won the genetic lottery because we were born in this country and we speak English. And realistically, nobody can argue with that. We could say there could be some demographic things that go on, but from a fortune standpoint, you can always find people who are doing better. You can always find people who are doing worse. But I think part of it is around what is the narrative we're managing in our head. And when I'm coaching with people, and I'm sure you do the same thing, I'm always looking for hedging words. Just as like if I'm investing with somebody, I'm looking for hedging words. But if somebody says, yeah, well, I'm going to try and do this, and then I hope this is going to happen, and we'll see how this goes, and then maybe we'll work on this. I'll be like, I'm out. What do you mean? Dude, you just gave yourself 4 ways. You gave yourself permission 4 times to fail. I want somebody who says, I'm going here. I don't know how, but that's what I'm doing. And when a wall comes up, I'll go around it. If I can't go around it, I'll go under it or over it. I'll blow the damn thing up. But that's where we're going. And encouraging and building that momentum around people, I think that's part of one of the things for us as part of the cheerleader part of being a coach or an advisor is helping do that in a pragmatic way. But what have you seen works for you?
Well, what you use, what you say are hedging words, I call weak language. And you talked about abdicating your power, and word codes are extremely significant. For example, I was working with a client, and their word code in this identity shift that they're moving through is I need more time. I need more time. I need more time. And as the pattern started to manifest, what the truth behind the statement is, I need proof. Okay, great. So let's go back in time as opposed to catastrophizing the future. And let's go find all big, small, significant or otherwise, let's go find all the evidence where you've already reaped the benefits of this behavior. Whether it's as simple as showing up, right? Let's go back in time and visit all the times that's all you did. You showed up and something magnificent happened. Cool. Now let's take that evidence and stand in it and show up one more time. That's huge.
Yeah, I love that.
Because in this particular instance, the proof already exists. But you're looking for it out there. For proof to exist at all presupposes that it already happened.
Right. No, I love that. Mm-hmm. Have you read much Joe Dispenza?
I've read, what is it? There's the one about getting over yourself or something like that.
Breaking the habit of being yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I read that one.
He does a pretty good job deconstructing quantum mechanics and that kind of thinking. And one of the ways that I would do it is that it's proven, Heisenberg proved that from this second forward, for both you and for I, there's an infinite number of possibilities. And most people feel like they're going through life reacting to whatever life throws at them. But they've proven mathematically, which is trippy, that it's the exact opposite, that we're attracting what we're driving towards.
Mm-hmm.
And that those time frames, those things actually exist. That future exists already in all those different timelines. It's just, how do we drive towards that? And sometimes attaching some of that proof, depending on the type of person you're working with. And some of them get it, some of them don't. Mm-hmm. But I love the way that you can go in the past, but help people understand that these same mechanisms that you're using going in the past, that same thing applies in the future. And where do you want to go and how do you want to get there? And what are the things? But it helps, again, force who we're getting in front of and how we're achieving it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
I had this recent revelation, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. You know, I'm a huge proponent of, deep personal work on self. And I had been told for the longest time that, the way that I coach at the level that I coach it is worth 6 figures plus. And I'd always get that commentary at the back end of a workshop or a seminar or a coaching call. And because of the container I was in when the observation is made, and the next thing is, oh, thank you for that, I got to go get on a plane. The only thing the pattern that had created was, oh, I've got an identity issue, or there's more work that I need to do for my own self-worth, and et cetera. And I had not invested the time to sit still and take that thought experiment all the way to the finish line. So I got caught in this loop of, I'll just get another coach, I'll go to another workshop, I'll do more mushrooms, here we go. And eventually I'll find the bottom of the rabbit hole. And when I finally invested the time, and this is like 3-4 hours to sit with it, I realized, like, oh, the work is ongoing and I've already done it. And I have the proof and all of those things. I haven't been talking to people that value what I do at that level. Well, that's a much easier issue to resolve than trying to find the bottom of that rabbit hole, And I'm curious, how do you help somebody figure out that they're trying to solve the wrong problem? In your practice, we'll use that example that I just gave you. Is it like smack Michael in the face, like, no, look over here, dummy? Or do you just continue to drip out breadcrumbs until they own that conclusion for themselves?
I don't know that we can lead them to a certain point, mm-hmm. But we can't throw lightning at them. They got to throw their own lightning. Mm-hmm. So I think the true goal for us is to help them give themselves the permission mm-hmm. to invest the time and look at those things in a different way. So one of the key things I say a lot is, just because a senior leader can doesn't mean they should. Mm-hmm. And most senior leaders, their default mode is head down, work harder. When the default mode should be chill out and go for a hike for 2 hours with no phone. And that just freaks people out and makes them so uncomfortable. But when people can do that, mm-hmm. I believe our subconscious is our most powerful tool, period. I think our subconscious is trying to solve problems for us all the time and has answers beyond belief if we get out of our own way mm-hmm. and we let ourselves have the time. I use the analogy of If you've ever stood in the shower and just let the water roll over the top of your head for an extra 3 minutes, you get that eyes, bing, like, oh my God, yeah, that's it. That's gold. How can we cultivate that kind of thinking? So then once we get people to start embracing, even considering that, then what are the prompts that you and I can do to get people to start thinking about those things in the right way? Mm-hmm. And to me, it ends up being a game on how few prompts do I have to do before I get somebody to go, oh, I got it. And when do they get there? Because once you get somebody to get that, man, that's the ultimate dopamine hit. Mm-hmm. They'll give themselves permission left and right then and go, no, I got to go have my downtime. I got to go let my subconscious work. That's why I used to think I take 2 to 4 3-hour blocks a week to think and go ride my bike. And I did it last night in the snow. It was awesome on my new fat bike and went for an 18-mile ride. I used to think that was the most opulent, selfish thing I could do. Mm-hmm. But the reality is the time as I invest that I can help and solve problems for my clients and that I can solve problems for myself. That I think is one of the key accountabilities for a senior leader, is to slow down and think. But where's your head go? Does that make sense? And what do you think?
I'm curious because I know that you're a steward of your practice. What was the moment where you realized how important that is? Across the 16 companies that you've built and transcended into advising and coaching, like, was there a moment where it's like, no, this needs to happen? Was there guidance you were given? Did something go sideways on you because that wasn't in your repertoire? Like, how did all that come to be?
I've never had that question. That's a great question. Thank you. In 98, I sold a business, got a little whack, wasn't big, but it was something. And I took a year and traveled around the world, hit all 7 continents in a poser move and blew all the proceeds. Best thing I ever did. It was awesome. And I kept thinking that I spent time in a monastery in Nepal, and I, was in the backcountry of South America. And I thought I would have some sort of huge epiphany or something that came through. So I invested that whole time. And it didn't happen. And it was kind of a letdown. But somehow I innately knew that it was still the right thing to be doing. And I did meet my wife on that trip. We met on a freighter in Patagonia, which was cool. But I think it was when things were really, really hard. And it was just like, I don't know how the fuck I'm going to handle this. That, staring awake at 3 a.m. and not actually processing something, but only processing like half of it, and just repeating it over and over and over and over and over and over and going nowhere, just a doom loop of hell. That I needed to actually figure out how to start putting more intention behind it and just going for simple walks. I don't know. I find going for a walk where we live, I could take about a 15-minute walk. That's just in the woods. And it's perfect. So I go take a lap 2 or 3 times a day just to figure out what's my next thing I'm going to work on, just to make sure my head's on straight. So I can tell you that here's an example where I know of a strike point for somebody. I had a gentleman who managed a huge nonprofit, almost $7 billion nonprofit. He showed up in my office, just sort of collapsed in front of me on the other side and said, "I'm here." I'm like, "Okay, why?" He goes, "Well, so-and-so said I should talk to you." It's like, okay. So this guy was working 90-hour weeks. He was just cooking himself out. And he went, and his 2 action items out of that first coaching session were, 1, to have a date with his wife without his phone, and 2, to start driving. He was very strong in his faith, but to start driving in the morning, his 45-minute commute with no radio on. And he pulled me aside at the about a year later at their annual and said, look, man, I really want to say thank you. You actually taught me how to think this year. He had been very good at doing, but he had never stopped to think. And it worked by him not turning the radio on a 45-minute commute into his office. So I think for me, when I get people started on that, I want them to if they can get one idea that's just that I want that one dopamine hit. Because once they get that one, then they're going to want more and more and more.
So you got them chasing a dragon with an upward trajectory.
Yes, the right thing. So it's like, no, I don't have time to do all this other shit, but God, I need to go on my walk. Mm-hmm. And then when I come home, I need to put my phone in a box. I can check it whenever I want, but I put it in a box and I'm going to go sit down. I'm going to go do Barbie fun time and full on for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to go, I'm going to go do my exercise or go, talk with whatever. But it's putting more intensity and more intention behind what we're doing. Mm-hmm.
What does the evolution look like of that concept for you and Rika? Because she met you. I'm genuinely curious. She met you on what I'll call a spiritual sabbatical.
Well, either that or I had a little money in my pocket and I was chasing adventure and girls, but one of the two. Yours sounds better.
They can look awfully similar, sir.
Yes, that's true. This is true.
How has that evolved through the seasons of your marriage?
So we put a lot of intentionality around things. Mm-hmm. It's how we ended up here in the mountains. It's how she ran her 50 milers. It's how we take 2 months off a year. We're very intent on doing strategic planning around that, but on a holistic, integrated way. Mm-hmm. And, we're in a really good spot. So we could retire, but we banned that word because we both think we would be a menace if we ever retired. So we adopted our friend's language, thanks, Doug, called rewirement. So we've rewired, and we're giving up the construct of what other people say about when you're supposed to retire or how many hours a week you're supposed to work or how many weeks a year you're supposed to work. We can do whatever the fuck we want, but we have to figure out what that looks like. So she's rewired to where she does her counseling 3 days a week. I've rewired to where I take Monday mornings and Friday afternoons off. We take a couple months off for adventure travel. So it allows us to lean into that more and more. I'm building my peer circles more and more. I've got a few coaches that I'm working with that are bringing up underneath me within the firm, which is a lot of fun. But to me is what lights me up, what's true to who I really am. And as long as we keep focusing on that and we try and embrace the intentionality of a holistic life, I don't know, I think it's going to keep me young and we'll do stuff for a long, long time.
I love it, man. I love it. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time. You're supremely protective of how you invest it. And you just gave me and everybody listening a whole hour of nothing but wisdom. So I'm grateful for it. Where can everybody find you, learn about life on your own terms and peer circles?
So if you want, you can go to peer-circles.com. Now, this is an area that we're focusing for helping coaches to achieve the extraordinary. But primarily we're doing that with the intention of being able to help the ultra high net worth and the family offices and the family dynamics and the transition that's happening in the great wealth transfer to really connect in places that it's safe and people can achieve extraordinary. So you can go there, or you can reach to Kris Kluver, Kris with a K, Kluver with a K.com. LinkedIn, but and I'm, again, Michael, man, I'm very humbled and I'm so proud to see where you're going. and seeing that you're leaning into being you and where you want to go, and know the contributions you're going to make to the world. It's extraordinary.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I'm honored to have you on that journey with me, man.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. For everybody out there listening, remember, if you desire to be the fittest leader possible, it comes down to integrity, courage, and ownership. We're here to support you in that effort. Let us be your guide. And remember, it comes down to alignment first. We'll see you next time.